All right, what's up? We are through week 2. Isn't that amazing? Like training camp feels like it just started. Now we're through week 2 of training camp, and we have some Detroit Lions players who are doing well and some who are struggling. And I love what Pride of Detroit does. They are really coming together, and they just gave us a really good position at each spot. They're at the practices, they're seeing what's going on, whose stock is up, whose stock is down. But in this one, I kind of want to focus on 3 different players. And I might even give you a freebie or 2 here. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure you comment on this video. Become part of the Detroit Sports Talk Detroit community here. All right. So our first stock up is Justin Jackson. And I think people would be as interested to see about who our stock down is on this one as who our stock up is. The stock down, unfortunately, is Mohamed Ibrahim. Or Ibrahim, however you want to say it. I didn't know how to say it at Minnesota, and I still can't say it now. It's just one of those names I struggle with. I don't know. The Ibrahim. I've heard multiple announcers say it multiple different ways. So Jackson has come in and solidified his spot on the roster with solid special teams contribution, reliability on offense, and had the play of the day during the Lions scrimmage last Thursday. Regardless of whether it's running back 3 or running back 4, Jackson looks like he has a firm grasp on the roster. This is a guy who the Detroit Lions brought in a little bit later. He still made it to camp and all that kind of stuff. Don't get me wrong. But it was always like, where's Justin Jackson? Like, where's this guy at? Like, he was our 3rd running back almost all of last year, and at times our 2nd running back, and he did well. So where did he go? I'm not saying he lit the world on fire or anything like that, but he was a solid player. So where did he go? And then they re-signed him, and you're like, all right, thank you. You get it. But here's what you have to realize when you're looking, especially at that last position or that last player at each position, they almost have to be able to play special teams. Otherwise, how are they going to make this roster? I remember last year, early on in the year, we were all excited during preseason, during training camp about Maurice Alexander because he could return kicks. And he had some good kick returns, and we were all talking about it. Well, he ended up not spending a ton of time with the team, mostly spent time on the practice squad. Yes, there were injuries to receivers, and he played games. I understand that. But Justin Jackson was the one getting more run because not only could he return kicks, but he also could play on every level of special teams. He could play on the punt team. He could play on the kick coverage team. He could play wherever you needed him to play. So it was good. I think it also has to be said that Reynolds continues to run as the team's 3rd option for touches at running back. I think that is something that you can't ignore. All right, here's another guy that we've talked about in the past, Dylan Drummond. Here's what Dan Campbell said. We knew pretty quick, like, this is a pretty sharp guy. Like, you had a gut feeling he's going to be able to get this pretty quickly. And so, hey, man, let's give him a look. Let's bring him into camp. And he is not disappointing. So that's really, really good. The stock down, the injured guys, Tom Kennedy, Trinity Benson, Antoine Green. Like, these are the guys that are struggling for sure. Each position, I don't know if I'm going to hit every position. I've already made a video on Sam Laporta. I don't think we need to continue to talk about that too much. He's been the starter every single time. And they're just doing really, really well. I do want to talk about the offensive line here. There's a name that sticks out to me, and it's right here. It's Colby Sorsdahl. Thank you. All right. But I also like that Coyote, Iwasika, and Obina Eze are sticking out a little bit. We know Glasgow's good. We know all that's going well. But with Vaitai being limited and Glasgow filling in, it opened the door for Sorsdahl to get consistent reps with the second team. And he has not been terrible. Iwasika has settled in as the second team left guard and is starting to separate himself from other interior defenders. Let's talk about this for a second. Dan Campbell, after week 1 of training camp, came out and he talked about offensive linemen on the first team that were playing really well, as we all expected. But he couldn't single out one player on the defensive side. Not one. And there was nobody where it was like, yep, here's the guy. This is what we're looking to. Now, all of a sudden, it looks like Sorsdahl is good enough, which coming out of William Mary, if he is good enough not to look horrible on the second team, that's ahead of schedule. That's ahead of schedule. And as you would expect, we have so much defensive line depth that this second team offensive line was getting run. So if Iwasika is starting to separate himself, that means he's starting to have victory over some of the better players that are on that second team defensive line or even rotating in with the second team. And that is something you absolutely would look forward to. But what about that defensive line? Who's sticking out on the interior of that defensive line? None other than, and he's continuing to do it, Broderick Martin. Another rookie, y'all. Another one. Another one. All right. He just keeps going. He's been consistently cycling with bugs through first team reps and has routinely been making big plays. We're talking tackles for losses. We're talking big time disruptions. All right. This is huge. Aaron Glenn said that's the reason why we wanted to see Martin against some of the ones, to see exactly how he was going to operate. And he went on to say, that's not an easy job going against Ragnow now. That's not an easy job. But the only way to find out is to put his, you know what, in there and see what he's going to do. And that's exactly what we did. And he has continued to look good. So you've got Aleem McNeil as your starter, entrenched at D tackle. Broderick Martin is starting to stand out. Okay. You have Bugs that's rotating first team reps. And it looks like Benito Jones is very thoroughly looking like a solid D tackle for, and putting himself in an opportunity to make the roster. I think that's fantastic. All right. I'm not going to talk a ton about Josh Paschal. I talked about him pretty heavily in a previous video, how I believe that he can be an even better version of John Kaminsky. I know I got some comments saying like he doesn't have to be better. I know he doesn't have to be better. I know, but his physical tools when he was drafted lent you to believe if he can start picking up the system, if he can play a similar role as Kaminsky, he should be able to do it at a slightly higher level. All right. He should be able to do it at a slightly higher level. And then it's just Jack Campbell continuing to run with the starters at the linebacker position and kind of go from there. The secondary is not as heavy. This is interesting. Savion Smith, like that's a name you don't expect, right? He started camp with the third team. He's worked his way up to the second. And Ifeatu Melifonwu has missed some days. He's, by the way, a stock down guy. So when his stock goes down, Savion's goes up. I just don't know how much room there is at safety for people to make it. It looks like Riley Patterson, based on some of the comments that Campbell made. I'm just running off a bunch of players right now. Looks like some comments that Campbell made. Riley Patterson is probably in the lead for the kicking job. He talked about how, and this is hard for me to understand. He talked about how Riley Patterson is much better with kickoffs than Romo, that he consistently has more hang time. He has a bigger leg with kickoffs, and he's more accurate with kicking the field goals. But then you go to Parker Romo and he talks about how big his leg is, but he's always going to need to work on some of the accuracy stuff with the field goals. So I'm just like, this is weird. So Romo's got the massive leg. He's got the massive leg for the field goals, but Riley Patterson's got it for kickoffs. I don't know. I think this stuff's kind of crazy. So it seems like just combine them and you have a perfect kicker. But we all saw how solid Riley was for us when he played like, what was it, 6-7 games a couple years ago. We all kind of felt like we should have kept him, that he would be our kicker. And then we signed Seibert or Seibert makes the team over him. It was weird. He went on to make like 31 of 35 for the Jags. And we're like, you know what? We want this guy back. So I'm telling you, Riley's going to make the team. That's his stock up, but you never know. All right. That's all I got. I talked a lot. Probably could have made like 3 videos with this, but there you go. One-stop shop for all your stuff. Comment, subscribe. See ya.